Hey YouTube, this is Michael from Michael Mays Leatherworks. Today I want to share with you the build process on a bifold wallet. This is made using an acrylic pattern from AM Leathercraft. I will have a link in the description if you are interested in getting one of the many templates he offers. Now let's get started on this build. In this first picture you can see that I laid out each piece of the acrylic template onto the leather. Take note that each piece is overcut. When you dye leather, it has a tendency to shrink and it may warp a little on you. Now the next step in the process was to dye the leather. Here I use Phoebe's medium brown dye. I start applying the dye using circular motions. Once covered, you will notice it will look kind of blotchy, but that's normal for the first coat. I add a second coat of dye, applying it this time in a single direction, for example from left to right. I then let the leather sit untouched until the dye is dried completely. Once the dye is dried completely, I give it a good buffing and then apply a layer of Aussie's leather conditioner. I'll let this sit on the leather for about 20 minutes or so, then buff off any excess. I then lay the template pieces on the leather and carefully cut out each piece of the project. I then flip the pieces over to the flesh side and I apply a generous layer of tan coat with a wool dauber. Let the tan coat stand undisturbed until it's no longer sticky, which takes about 10 minutes. Now that the leather has been prepared, I want to go ahead and burnish the edges that will be inaccessible once the wallet is assembled. This includes the tops of the credit card slots, the sides of the credit card slots that are facing the middle of the wallet, and the inner notch that is cut out of the inner panel. At this point, the leather still felt a little too stiff from the dyeing, so I added a coating of hot neatsfoot oil. I let this soak in for a few minutes, then buffed off any excess oil. Now a note on this, you don't want the neatsfoot oil to be boiling hot. I keep mine in a glass jar, as you can see in the picture, and I heat it in the microwave for approximately 2 minutes. The next step is to prepare the credit card pockets. You can see here that I have skived the bottom of the piece up about 1/4 inch. I also skived the sides up to the notch, the same 1/4 inch in from the side. This is repeated on all the credit card pocket pieces. Using the acrylic pattern, you can see on the left side of the picture a faint line scribed between the two dots. This is where you line up the bottom of the first card slot, as seen on the right side of the picture. Apply a thin coat of contact adhesive to the skived bottom portion of the credit card pocket and on the line also. Allow the adhesive to become tacky, which takes about 5 minutes, then carefully place the sleeve on the inner panel. Once your piece is in place, you need to mark your sewing line using your wing dividers. I marked mine about 1.5 millimeters from the bottom. Then, using a number 8 pricking iron, I punched my holes for sewing. Repeat these steps for the other side. And a quick note, number 8 pricking iron means a pricking iron that will give you 8 sewing holes per inch. I then placed the panel in the stitching pony, and using my waxed 0.25 poly thread that I got from Main Thread Company, I sewed the credit card slots onto the panel using the saddle stitch. Even though these stitches will not be seen, do your best to keep even tension on your stitches. Now here I have come to the end of the first stitching run. I backstitched 2 times, then I trim the thread off as close to the leather as I can. I then use my thread zapper to melt the thread down to the stitch line. This will help keep the thread from unraveling. Now you can see here I am sewing the second credit card slot into place. Once the top credit card pockets are sewn into place, I then take the top credit card pocket and mark my sewing line only on the inner side of the pockets. I first attach the top pocket with contact adhesive. Then using the number 8 pricking iron, I make my holes and sew the top pockets into place. In the next two pictures, you'll be able to clearly see the previous sewing lines. You can also see that I have applied contact adhesive to the inner panel and to the main wallet body. Once the adhesive is cured, about 5 minutes or so, I use the number 8 pricking iron and carefully make my holes from the top right down to the previous stitch line. Make sure you take your time at this stage in the process and line up your edges as flush as possible. This will make finishing your edges a lot easier when you get to the end of your project. I then place the piece in my stitching pony, saddle stitch the inner panel to the main body panel. Here you can see that the stitching has been completed on the right side of the wallet. I snipped off the thread as close as possible, and again, using my thread zapper, melt the thread to the stitching line. Here's a view of the stitch line from the back. Now this next step takes a little patience and a steady hand. The main body panel is slightly longer than the inner body panel, but they are the same width. The goal here is to put a bead of contact adhesive along the bottom of the unsewn side where you see the clips and the left side. You'll notice the wallet's upside down in the picture. I thought you'd be able to see better what I'm doing this way. Now you'll want to make sure this is a very strong adhesion here before you remove the clips. There's going to be extra pressure trying to pull this part apart since the main body is longer than the inner panel. So I let this sit clipped for about 30 to 45 minutes before I use my number 8 pricking iron to punch my sewing holes. Now here I'm punching the holes, making sure to get the same number of stitches as the right side of the wallet. If you don't, when you finish your stitching, it'll look off to your eye. Now here you can see the stitch lines have been punched along the bottom and on the left side. Now we're back to the stitching pony. Here you can see a close-up of the saddle stitch. Make sure to take your time and keep consistent tension on your stitches. Remember, when you work with thin leather, that you can actually pull your thread through the leather and break it, rather easily. This will ruin your entire project. Now with the sewing done, it is on to the sink. Here I run it under the tap for a few seconds really. You don't want to oversaturate the leather. We only need to get it damp so we can set the bend in the middle part of the wallet. This is going to allow the wallet to sit closed and not spring open as you see here. Take note of the even tension on each stitch. Now here are a few pictures of how the wallet should look at this stage. Now we need to finish the edges. For this project I used vegetable tan leather, so you can see I've sanded the edges here to get them flush. I used my Dremel tool with a small sanding drum to make this faster. I then used a number 2 edge beveler that I got from Tandy, and I took the sharp edges off the sanded sides to give them a nice rounded appearance. I then used the medium brown dye, the same dye that I used to dye the main panels, and I used that to dye the edges. Now we're to everybody's favorite part of leatherworking, burnishing. I always start by getting a sponge damp and then wetting the sides of the project that needs to be burnished. You don't want to get them sloppy wet. You just want to get them, you just want to introduce a little moisture. Then use very light pressure and use your start to burnish using your wood slicker. You don't need heavy pressure down. That'll actually cause the sides to start to mushroom out. You want to use very light pressure and a faster motion back and forth. That'll allow you to get a really nice burnish. Now, once I start to get a decent burnish, I'll add a thin layer of gum trag, and then I'll continue burnishing. Now, when I think I'm done, I'll then add a thin layer of saddle soap to the edge, and then I'll burnish it some more. And then I'll repeat this process on all sides. So here is the almost finished product. Now, I say it's almost finished because I plan on doing a little laser engraving on the front of it, and that needs to be done before the sealer is applied. But that does not affect the overall build process that we've gone through thus far. Now, you can see my maker's mark is a little big for a wallet like this. So I have a couple of new stamps being made by AM Leathercraft. The owner's name is Alex. He's doing a slick monogram stamp that I will be able to put on the face of my projects, and then he's going to do like a classier version of Michael Mays Leatherworks that I can where I can put my brand on the inside of items or on the back. Something that'll look better on my higher end items. Now, I'm going to be reviewing these new stamps when I get them, so I'm sure everybody out there that's in the market for a Maker's Mark stamp, you'll be looking forward to that video coming out. Now, that will be a live video. It's going to be a video demonstration of how the stamps, how they're used. Now, I do use mine with a press. And then I'll review how well of an impression does it leave, ease of use, etc. What you would expect out of a stamp. Well, as always, I do thank you guys for taking the time to watch my video here. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You can also click on the little bell icon below to be notified as soon as a new video is released, if you want to keep up to date on all my new videos. And you guys be on the lookout for new leatherworking videos soon. Thanks, guys.